Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. My brother and I were a little detached from each other as we formed our personalities throughout our lives. Not that it was abnormal, but he was 3 years older than me, and especially in high school, none of us wanted to share our friends. He had his own world, and I had mine. My brother Jeff got married when he was 22, when he was in college, and they started their life together not far from their college. So I've never been around them long enough to really get to know his wife, other than a superficial friendship. I got married 3 years later, when I turned 22 too. I married my boyfriend from high school, with whom I remained close. I wasn't the most confident girl, and probably wouldn't have gotten married if I was like that. My boyfriend and I were still living separately from each other, as he stayed at home to attend a local community college, while I followed my parents' request to leave and explore myself while in college. In fact, I just followed their advice to leave and go to college because I can't say that I did any research. During my studies, my husband stayed at home with his parents, and in the summer months we rented an apartment by monthly arrangement and pretended to be an ordinary married couple. From the first months of our life together, it was obvious to me that we were actually incompatible. Although I was usually a quiet and shy girl, I knew that I wanted something more adventurous from my husband in terms of betting. I was very popular in high school, even though I was shy. Everyone knew that my boyfriend and I were a couple, so I didn't have to push guys away, but there were a lot of popular guys who wanted Jeff and me to break up. My husband was active in all popular sports in high school, while he was never a college scholarship athlete. I would describe him as very handsome with a height of 180 centimeters and a weight of about 80 kilograms, with short-cropped dark hair and a clean-shaven face, as I liked him. I would hope that he would call me pretty, but I think the first word he could use would be cute. I am short, 160 centimeters, and very petite, with long, dirty blonde hair and brown eyes. It was my insecure feelings about the fact that our relationship was falling apart, and my belief that marriage could fix us, that gave me the desire to get married. Getting married didn't seem to get rid of any of my insecurities, and at the end of a short marriage, we decided to divorce. I felt humiliated, crushed, and heartbroken, and the hardest part of the process was telling my family about my failure when I started this process. I first told my parents about this in a face-to-face conversation between buckets of tears, and they were kind enough to pass the information on to my brother instead of me. Jeff called me a few days later and reminded me that his thoughts and prayers are with me, and if I think he can help in any way, all I have to do is call him. During our conversation, I held back tears and tried my best to seem confident in my decisions. But at that time, I couldn't be more insecure about everything. We didn't sign the final documents until the end of the summer holidays at school, and I had one more year left. In a phone conversation with my brother Jeff, I explained to him that I had signed a divorce agreement, but of course it was a process, and it would not be official until it was filed with the court, which was supposed to happen in a couple of months, and I told him the date that I was told it would happen, and it will be final. I also informed him that I wasn't going home for the summer holidays because I didn't think I would be able to meet with our mutual friends and discuss the breakup of my marriage. Jeff said he understood, but reminded me that Mom and Dad would hardly understand. I told him they should understand, because I'm not going home yet. Jeff and I talked on the phone several times as he made extra efforts to contact me to make sure I didn't snap and I wouldn't have an emotional breakdown. He called me the day before the court was supposed to finalize my divorce, and I told him, I'm going to have a hard day tomorrow. I can only guess. I've been dreading this day because of you ever since you mentioned it to me, he replied. I'm sure I'll survive, I said, trying to convince myself that my depression wouldn't overcome me. I wonder if I can make you promise to do something for me that might help? Jeff asked. You're going to tell me to surround myself with friends and be busy with something? As everyone else advised, I replied. Not really. I was hoping that you would agree to come to the airport and pick me up since I flew in to surprise you. I squeaked with enthusiasm and replied, Now. I could take a taxi, but I'm not sure where you live, he said. I'll be right there. Will you be waiting in front of the arrival terminal? I asked, still sounding excited as I searched for my car keys and was grateful that I hadn't changed out of my good outfit into dirty clothes. See you soon, sis. But don't crash the car trying to hurry up, he warned. I ignored his warning and raced like a bat out of hell to get to the terminal as quickly as possible. It was the first time my brother visited me at school, and I suddenly wondered if it was possible that his wife could be with him. As I slowly approached the terminal, I easily noticed him and pulled over in front of him at the curb. Jumping out from the driver's side, I left my door open and rushed to my brother to hug him tightly. "Thank you for coming. This is the best surprise in the world," I admitted. "Better than the time I put that toad in one of your shoes?" He teased. "Better than if you put all these moments together," I said, and hugged him tightly once more before the horn sounded, drawing my attention to my open door and the problems it was causing. I rushed around to close my door, while my brother threw his only bag into the back seat and took the seat in front. "Sherry didn't arrive?" I asked, trying to be polite. "Did you want her to do that?" My brother asked, looking at me questioningly. "Not really, but she shouldn't know that," I replied. "Don't worry, sis. She only likes you half as much as you like her," Jeff said. "Oh," I teased. "I'm really glad to see you," he said when he finally seemed to settle into his seat. "Are you hungry?" I asked. "I'm starving," he replied. "We can buy something on the way to my house," I suggested. "Or I could take you somewhere nice," he suggested. "I'm glad to see you, but I don't want to go out," I said, and showed him the frown on my face. "Do you mind the pizza?" he asked. "It sounds tempting, but I've already eaten, so don't take too much," I replied. "Then I'll only need one very big one," he teased. "One all-male pizza with meat to choose from?" I teased. "Mostly meat, some cheese and olives," he replied. I was so excited that I almost missed the driveway to the pizzeria, but I abruptly pulled the car into the parking lot, and we both went inside so he could order. The place was crowded, as usual for this time of day, but I knew they would deliver the pizza to us quickly. "I'll be right back, sis," my brother said, heading for the door and going outside. I couldn't imagine where he was going, since my car was locked and only I had the keys. I thought about going to my car and seeing if he was heading there, but I knew he'd be back quickly once he realized his mistake. Our name was called, and I squeezed between several people to get to the checkout window, introduce myself, and take a pizza box. Despite the fact that others were pushing and touching me, I managed to turn around and walk through the crowd of visitors, mostly men, to the door. When I left, Jeff was going to come in with 12 packs of beer in his hands, and I realized that he had gone to the convenience store for beer. "It's a good idea. I didn't have anything to drink for you," I said when we got to my car and boarded it. "The pizza was fast," he said as he peeked into the back seat where I'd put it, then bent down and flipped back the lid to make sure it was ours once more. "They have a system that delivers pizza faster than any other place in the city," I said. "It looks good," he said, returning to his seat, and we drove up to my apartment complex. "It's a small apartment," I warned as we climbed the stairs to the second-floor apartment. I was carrying a pizza and a 12-pack of groceries, while Jeff followed me with his luggage in his hand. "No one likes the place they rent," he said when we stopped in front of my door, and, putting his bag on the floor, took the pizza box from me so I could open the door. "This is just a studio room," I warned, opening the door and opening a small space for him. "So don't worry about it. Let's enjoy the pizza and catch up," he said. "I'm getting divorced. What else do you need to catch up?" I asked, starting to look for plates, but Jeff rejected the idea of using a glass and opened a can of cold beer. "Do you want to talk about it? Would it do you any good?" he asked. "What do you want to know?" I asked, handing my brother a plate with 2 slices of pizza. "Was there something that went wrong? Or was it a lost love in general?" he asked. When we were together, he was happy to live together as if we were roommates, and when we were apart, we missed each other like friends, I explained. "Are you saying that making love was bad?" Jeff asked. "If there was lovemaking, I didn't like it," I said when my appetite woke up and I reached for a slice of pizza and put it on my plate. "If that's the case, then my marriage is doomed to fail," Jeff said. "You two are good at it, aren't you?" I asked, not believing what my brother had just told me. "I think most married couples have a problem with that," he said. "What are your problems?" I asked. "Do you really want to know, sis?" Jeff asked. "Is it too personal to talk about?" I asked. "It lacks adventure. It has become mundane, as if it is some kind of routine work," he explained. "So add some spice," I said. "I think if we keep talking about it, it's going to depress both of us," Jeff said. "I think I agree," I replied. "But I have one last question," I said. "Always so inquisitive. Jeff said as I took another slice of pizza out of the box and put it on his plate. This is a very personal question, I warned. I'll give you an honest answer, he insisted. Have you ever cheated on Sherry with another woman? I asked. I expect you'd be shocked, but I did it, he said, but he didn't say it in a way that made me believe he was either proud of it or sorry about it. More than once? I asked because I was shocked and didn't expect him to cheat or admit it if he did. Several times with different women, which I'm sure you're going to ask now, he said, and I did. Do you feel guilty when you cheat? I asked. I'm worried about getting caught, but when I do, I don't feel guilty, he explained. I can't imagine that you would cheat on your wife, I said. My first time was with an old girl about 6 months after our wedding, he explained. She gave me something that my wife said she would never want. I probably shouldn't have been so open with her about what my wife was like, but she said she felt sorry for me and wanted to remind me how good it was with her. What kind of things? I asked. I don't think you really want to know, Jeff replied, and I felt that this was his way of ending the topic, so I didn't pursue it further. Have you seen her again? I asked. I've never cheated on the same woman twice, he said. How many different women? I asked. He took his time answering, and I wasn't sure if he was calculating how many times or coming up with a way to tell me he didn't want to tell me. And then he said 7. I'm just shocked, I replied. Sometimes it just happens, he said. Aren't you afraid you might catch something? I asked. One was with a colleague. Her husband was out of town, and she wanted to have a drink after work instead of going back to an empty house. We ended up at her house, he said. Another time I was at an open-air concert and was standing in line for the toilet when a girl behind me grabbed my hand and went with me to the toilet. Was she pretty? I asked. Very pretty and young. I was hoping she was at least 18 at the time in case we got caught, he said. Do you think my ex cheated on me? I asked. I would be shocked if he didn't do it. You two have never been together, he said. Are you tired? I asked, glancing at my watch, and saw that it was almost 10 o'clock, and I knew that it was midnight for him according to his internal time. He looked around the small room I lived in and couldn't help but notice the double bed in the corner of the room and a few other pieces of furniture, besides the 2 bar stools we shared behind the small kitchen counter. I don't want to sleep, but I feel like I could sit down or lie down and relax, he said. You're my guest, so I'm giving you my bed, I said quickly. And I'm going to be a gentleman, and I'm not going to agree to anything. He replied, It's not fair to make you sleep on the floor. I hope I have the self-control not to attack my own brother. I said, So it all depends on you. I can sleep on the floor or share a bed with you. But I won't let you sleep on the floor, he said. What are you going to sleep in? I asked. I have a pair of gym shorts that I can wear, he said. You can change in the bathroom, I explained. He opened his bag, which was on the floor in the corner of the room, took out some of his things, such as a toothbrush and the like, along with shorts, went into the bathroom, and closed the door. When he came out of the bathroom, I got out of bed and went to brush my teeth and get ready for bed. I came out of the bathroom, and Jeff was sitting on the edge of the bed. Which side of the bed did you want to sleep on? I could get up once or twice a night, so I thought, would you like to stand on the side of the wall so I can climb over you? He asked. Sometimes I'm pressed up against the wall anyway, so it's okay, I said, pulling back the sheet and light blanket and climbing into bed. Jeff turned off the light and settled down on the bed away from me. I'm fully awake now, he whispered. I'm not tired either, I replied with a chuckle. Did I pin you against the wall? He asked. I'm right here. I said I'm not cramped. I have plenty of room here, he replied. I moved a little closer to him, moving to the center of the bed. I rolled onto my side, facing the wall, turning away from him. Keep it up, and I'll snuggle up to you. Not the wall, I teased. Do you sleep better when you cuddle? Jeff asked. I fall asleep faster, I replied. Do you want to hug me? I asked, not sure if I should do it or not. But he was my brother. I think I'd like to hug you, he replied. I moved slowly towards him until I touched his back, and he wrapped his arm around me. It's okay, I replied. I love you, and I'm so glad you're here, I whispered. I'm glad I'm here too, he replied. What are you thinking about? I teased. I'm in bed with you. What do you think I'm thinking about? He asked. Is it possible? I asked. You're as beautiful as any woman I know. Are you kidding? Jeff asked. Do you want me to get out of bed and sleep on the floor? He whispered. No, I said softly. This is so wrong, I said. Do you want me to stop? He whispered. I don't want you to stop, but I don't know how far we should go. I'm not going to do anything you don't want me to do, he whispered. It's not about what I want. Is this something we shouldn't do? Just say the word and I'll stop, he whispered. I love you, sis. I love you too, I replied. You are the best in the world. Was there something your wife wouldn't do for you? I asked. That and more, he replied. What kind of things, for example? I asked. I like things that you wouldn't do to me either, he said. Try me. I replied. Your husband should be married to my wife, Jeff said. Looks like they'd make a good couple, I replied with a chuckle. What kind of experience did you have before you got married? Jeff asked. Only with a couple of guys a couple of times, I replied. Are we going to do this? Jeff asked. I know it's wrong, but I can't stop, I replied. Did we really just make love? I whispered. You were amazing, said my brother. What are we going to do now? I asked. About us? He asked. About what we just did, I replied. What do you want to do? Jeff asked. Maybe we should forget that this ever happened. I suggested. I could pretend it never happened, but I promise you I'll never forget how it happened or how good it was, he replied. You would never tell anyone, would you? I asked. What do I gain if I tell someone? He replied as if he couldn't believe he was capable of such insidious behavior. If you never want to do this again, just tell me and I'll never touch you again, he whispered his assurance. It was early in the morning, and we decided that we should put aside our desires and get some sleep. End.